All right, I'm very excited. Today I'm talking with Joe Crookston. He is a musician, a painter, like all sorts of creative things we're going to hear about today. And he's been on quite a journey discovering his Enneagram type, recently landed on sexual 3 as the most likely subtype, but been quite a journey from 2. So we'll get into that. And also types in the Myers-Briggs system as an INFP. But again, that's been part of the journey. So thank you so much for joining me. You're currently touring. I know you're partway between places at the moment.
I am. Yep. I'm heading out to Minneapolis. I'm going to Michigan. I'm going to Chicago, and I'm en route being my creative self,
Yeah.
which involves a lot of loading and unloading equipment. And but I play a lot of shows and perform, and I love doing that. And I've done it for lots of years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited to hear what creativity is like from, a professional musician, because that's part of your life and has been for such a long time. So like, what does creativity mean to you?
Yeah. Well, it means so many things. If I went to maybe my most core answer to that, and maybe this is a belief, is that I think and I believe that we are souls incarnate in human form. And I think that our souls evolve over many lifetimes. And even if it's just in this lifetime, this isn't about even past lives, that kind of thing. It's more about soul evolution. And I really have a very deep belief from witnessing and watching that souls have an impulse to create. That is what we are. We manifest, we come forth into the world. And I think that on some very deep level, our souls are programmed to be creative, to create, to blossom, to come forward, to become. That might be a good word. And so
Mm.
when I have conversations in a classroom or with adults, oh, I'm not creative, oh, I'm not an artist, I'm not, and I say, no, 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 no. Now, I really have a strong, deep belief that everybody watching this YouTube video, everybody that we are souls and we are creative. I think the way that we define that, the way that we define that creativity can be very limiting
Mm.
and exclude others. It can exclude ourselves. Oh, I'm not a painter or a musician, or
And
a
ever I'm not creative. Yeah.
and therefore I'm not creative. And maybe I'll just reiterate by really saying that I believe deeply that our soul's impulse is to express itself. That's the way I would put it. Our soul's impulse is to express ourselves and itself. And our human ego and our human fear closes that impulse down to a smaller place. And everybody maybe ranges somewhere where maybe I do feel like a person that in a lot of ways says yes to that impulse. And I felt the feeling of saying yes to that impulse. And I've seen money come into my bank account because of that impulse. And I've seen people cry and write me letters about their childhood and the healing that they've done from that impulse. So I've had what I call, I've had many tastes of how that impulse in me being expressed benefits and comes back in good ways. So I've had that, whatever the word would be, I have the great experience of seeing how it's benefited others and myself. And I just would say that um, we all allow our soul to express, or we close it down to whatever degree that I think we are accepting of that. And if I could change one thing in our entire planet, world, universe, it would be to tap everybody and say, you may not be a sculptor or a writer of a great novel, but your soul is desiring to express itself in beautiful ways.
Mm.
And when that happens, we go to war less and we fight less and we resent our partners less. And I think that could be a beautiful next step in our evolution as humans.
Mm,
So
absolutely.
I really, that these are important thoughts to me. And then I can also take all of that seemingly esoteric or spiritual ideas, philosophical ideas, and bring them down into concrete actions too. And I think I like to swing between the macro story and the micro actions that allow me to do that. And
Mm.
yeah.
And I completely agree. I think one of the things I longed for when I was a lot younger was for the world to just be more creative. I just was like, well, if everyone was more creative, this is very seven approach to life, then there would be no problems because everyone would A, feel the joy of creating, and B, have use creativity to solve the problems that we have. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Right. So even for you, we're like, come on, we can do this.
Let's be
Come
more
on,
creative.
yeah, just be more creative. Yeah, and
So I thought it might be a good time to start exploring because all the questions I want to ask might have a lot to do with your journey in terms of your Enneagram type and landing on that. 'Cause I was going to ask you what supports you to be creative, but actually, like, I'm wondering if that has changed as you've gone on that inner exploration.
yeah. Well, I have certainly, and it's so interesting. I would say that I do feel like I'm a fairly self-aware person, and I do a lot of self-reflection, and I really enjoy understanding or having myself reflected back. And so it's been a little confusing and a little bit hard to grok or whatever, the idea that I am been studying the Enneagram now for years, and that I really deeply have taken, courses. And I think we met in a course with
Yeah.
Beatrice Chestnut, yeah,
Yeah.
and Aurelio Pais, and um, that I still could not come to this place where I could definitely say, I am a 9, I am a 4, I am a 3, I am a 2. And I still don't quite know. I do think that there is a place that we might get to as humans where we really occupy a lot of those different type numbered qualities. But I'd say for me, I finally really feel like I've landed that I am a 3, a type 3, and that on a lot of levels, because I'm very social, because I do a lot of my work in concerts and schools, I do a lot of my achieving through human beings and through connecting and through service, in a way, if you'd say that. And I would say that one of the things about type 3 that I had to come to terms with is I'm a warm person, I'm kind, people like me, that kind of thing. I'm definitely but at the same time, if you got in my way of this thing I wanted to do or achieve or create or make, it really was hard for me to have someone get in my way of doing my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I had such an impulse to create. My soul had such an impulse to create it, to be expressive, that I had very little tolerance if someone kind of got in my way, I think, or slowed me down. Maybe that's a better way to put it. If they slowed me down, that was challenging for me. And what I've learned, even in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say one of the great lessons and things that I've really come to is the idea of like a type 3 can sometimes lose their heart. Like I'm so heart centered. I'm in the middle of the heart center. I'm right in it between 2, 3, and 4. The 3 is in the center of the heart center. And so yet I can be so in that heart center, but so driven to do the things that I want to do and achieve and create, that I lose my heart while I do that. And I think that there was a time, not mean, not nobody's, oh, he's an asshole, But I would say that I probably elbowed people out of the way, and it was much less collaborative because I had an agenda and I had things I wanted to make and create and do, and don't slow me down. And
Mm,
in that, I do feel like I was less willing to deal with people's feelings, less willing to deal with my own feelings. Now, I wasn't some robot. It wasn't like that. This is very subtle. If people who would know me be like, yeah, Joe is a feeling person. He's warm, he's kind, he's considerate, in these ways. But I think at a really core level, there was a time where I can look back. I like to think of it as when I lost my heart, because I was very driven to create. I was driven to make stuff and make and do a
mm,
good job. And maybe if we go all the way into the essence of it, maybe I was creating to prove myself. I was creating. I've learned this phrase called trauma drive. I don't know if you've ever heard someone use that, trauma drive.
not specifically. No. What is it? Tell me more.
Yeah. So trauma drive, what I have learned and understand, is really simple. It's just simply that trauma and past wounds drive you to act in certain ways. So you might be amazing, performer, right? I might be an amazing creative artist. A person might be very driven to succeed at a very high level, but the engine that's driving that desire to be so amazing is a wound or a trauma. So
Mm,
trauma can be the engine in which makes us do these amazing things. So maybe I've
mm,
painted 1,000 paintings and I've written hundreds of songs and I've played thousands of concerts. I've been getting more in touch with what aspect of me was doing that to prove my worth or to prove myself
mm.
worthy,
Yeah.
to do it from a place of kind of anxious creation. So this would be a way to my face right now, if I was creating because that kind of thing. That's different than creating from a place of safety and self-worth. And so one of the things that it's been interesting to me as I think about creativity for me is, the more I've gone through this healing journey, the more I've thought about my type, my own wounds from child, going back and thinking and feeling and grieving and healing those things. I have gotten so much more in touch with my ability to create from calm, to create from enoughness, to create
Mm,
from, here's my offering, and it's going to be pretty good. And if it's not, that's all right. I'll try again. And that feels very different to me than the kind of clutching creation of, oh my God, my worthiness and
mm,
self-worth or self-esteem or my public persona is riding on this moment. And I think it's been very deeply satisfying to let go, more and more of what I've heard called trauma drive, and
mm.
that engine is now more of it's an offering, and a creative offering from a place of enoughness, and that has felt great.
I love that comparison between creativity that's ego or trauma driven and creativity that is just an offering, you know,
Yeah.
and coming from a more like a calmer place. And I'm really curious what supports you to do the latter, to do, on a day-to-day basis, our egos want to take over. What supports you to try and get into that offering place? Like, I know you've done a lot of inner work, but just
Mhm.
yeah.
What supports me being in that place? Is
Mm.
that what you was ask the question
Yeah, I
again?
think that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. Um, Supports me to create and live more from the place of enoughness.
Mm.
Yes, I would say I'm very interested and fascinated by something called inner bonding.
Okay.
My friend Naomi turned me on to inner bonding. And inner bonding really is, at its core, I am safe. I am in a conversation with someone talking at me really fast and saying a bunch of things, and I can go, they're talking a lot. I'm safe. I'm okay. I am safe. I'm on stage in front of 1,000 people and I forgot the words. I'm safe. I'm here. I'm a child of God. I am good enough. I'm safe. And so, in some ways, inner bonding to me, maybe at its core, is really I am safe. And I'm safe knowing that my safety and my well being is in my hands, not in someone else's. So, I would say that one of the things that supports me being in that is how good it feels to not have the anxiety of that someone else's actions, words, behaviors, response to my art,
Mm.
response to my concert, their feedback, their maybe projection of, you know what I noticed, this kind of thing, or none of that can take away my safety. And I
Mm.
think that feeling, that taste of that safety, that nobody's response to my art or my creativity can take away the fact that I'm safe and my safety and well-being is right here. And I think that for me has been a big game changer, because in the world of creativity, and you're putting yourself out there, and I'm recording new music and I'm putting it on Spotify and people come to my shows, there's a lot of chance for people to evaluate, and
Mm.
there's a lot of chance for me to wonder and worry if how I'm being perceived, or if am I being evaluated in this way or that way. And frankly, I trust that I'm good. I know that people come and surround them. They want what I have to offer. And I know that some people don't. You know, some people just really aren't interested. And I've learned, it's okay. And then even if they were, it's almost a little bit of a game for me, a little bit. If someone was critical or maybe cynical, like, Joe Crookston, he's just, I actually kind of like it now. I almost would say I kind of like it because it helps me ground in that I have such a belief in it that I won't let it shake me. So
Mm.
that's. And now one other thing I wanted to say about that I have collaborated more lately. So this goes back to what I was saying about kind of elbowing my way and creating, is that I would say that I also feel like maybe the closest people around me I have chosen, and it matters to me very much that I have a shared language of this. And that one of the self-care things that I'm doing is not being closely connected to those who think that I should be different or act different or don't like the way I am, or question me at a core level.
Mm.
Meaning I'm around people who are supportive of Joe being a kind-hearted, inner bonded person who, that kind of thing. And if
Mm.
and if they aren't, I would say I've been better at saying no thanks, and drawing boundaries. So boundaries have been a hard thing for a type 3 like me, where I want to people please. I want to make sure that everybody's happy. Oh, you're going to stand and talk to me for an hour and ask me to come for dinner, and then okay, sure, yes. So in some
Mm.
ways, I've just been more honest. I'm learning in a
Yeah.
very big way to be more honest and say no, and then surround myself, I think, with people who see that in me, and I want that in them, vice versa. Like we're like, yes.
Mm.
I'm trying to think if there are other more specific, really detailed, specific things.
I actually thought those were really specific, actually.
Yeah,
This,
yeah,
I am safe and breathing. And it's a
yeah,
physical practice, but also a whole mindset,
yeah,
around, what I put out there is completely fine, no matter what anyone else thinks of it. Like, I think that's
yeah,
a really important attitude shift. Because so much of it, like, sometimes you don't even start making art because of what someone else might say about it. So I think that's
Absolutely.
so powerful, and surrounding yourself with people who make it okay for you to be you, like the authentic you, not the performing or people pleasing version of you.
Yes, that I can say no and you'll
Mm,
still love me. I can say not tonight and you'll still care about me. I can say that doesn't work for me. Here's why, and that I'm still valuable and worthy and all of that kind of thing. And yeah, and I just for the, for the record, or for, for clarification, I do feel like everything I'm saying right now, I feel like I'm excited for the next level of growth to happen. Meaning, I do think I've made some really big shifts from learning and owning my own safety despite anybody's opinions. But I don't think it's like, oh, I wasn't there and now I'm there. It feels like but I've made some real great progress towards
mm,
that. And then I notice when it comes up, like, uh-oh, you're doing the thing where you know, it's okay,
mm.
even maybe, let's say, on this call, i I'm not saying that I feel any way like this right now, but I would say, boy, I've just shared a lot of good things, and I've thought about this a lot, clearly, and I've articulated some concepts to you. Now, if I kept rambling right now and kept trying to say something even more interesting, or more, to follow up
Yeah.
with your question even more, that would be an example of me now slipping into a little bit of anxious creation, anxious talk that comes
Mm.
from, did I say enough? If someone's watching this YouTube video, are they going to turn it off now and be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about? It will I continue to talk out of anxiety? And so the answer would
Mm.
be like, oh, Joe, you're having a great conversation with Samantha, and I'm going to turn it back over to you and hear what you have to think now and what you have to say or ask.
Well, I was thinking, if we'd had this conversation a couple of years ago, we would have had an entirely different conversation, because
Mm.
neither would have done the certain amount of inner work required to be able to speak about creativity in this way. But the thing that I love is acknowledging that working with our patterns is a constant, at any moment that anxiety could creep up. And I noticed in this series, because you're sort of the last person I'm talking to for this part of the project. The first few episodes were all about, oh, I'm excited, I'm curious, and then they started to wane and I was getting bored and I was getting a bit tired. And then I noticed that the second I pressed record, I sort of had this slight wall, a game face sort of come on. And it was
Mm-hmm.
nowhere near as comfortable and authentic as it was when we'd be talking before and after. Like there was a certain honesty and authenticity and warmth that got lost by pressing
Mm.
record. And coming into our conversation today, I set a very clear intention of working against having that there, of just allowing
Mm.
things to flow and emerge, and just whatever, happening. Yes, I've got a loose structure, but to not feel that sense of like game face, I think is the
Yeah.
best. I don't even think that's right, but it's the best what I've got right now.
Yeah. I have this memory that as you were saying that, I was leading a group of about 80 people in a, this was about 10 years ago, or maybe even 12 years ago. And I was getting them to sing, and I was teaching them this thing in different parts, and 80 people. And it started to go, and I started doing it, but I got off to the wrong foot, and I started it in the wrong key. And then I taught this group oh, wait, I should have taught them for, like I as a facilitator, I definitely didn't do it well. Like I was 80 people and it started to go off course. And there was this moment where, this is a story that I really think about a lot, as I just kind of checked out and I kept going. And I
Mm.
just was like, I'm going to bulldoze my way through this, and I'm going to teach these people. And looking back on it, what happened was that I knew that I was on rocky ground, but I just could not admit it, and I just needed to make it happen, right?
Mm.
So an hour and a half later, it kind of went well, sort of, but it was like not that great of an experience. And the person who was there kind of mentoring me, they were like, Joe, about 8 minutes into that, you put on your game face, and
Mm.
you just were like, I got a thing, an agenda, I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I really, I kind of plowed through for the next hour with a game face on that was to serve this thing that I was like gonna do, instead of what he would call like emergent design.
Mm.
8 minutes in, hey everybody, I think I just messed up. I think I
Mm.
just started wrong. I got you guys going on the wrong. Let's all take a big breath. And I'm really, man, did I mess that one up? Boy, I'm still a good person, and we're here. We are. Ha ha ha. Let's rewind and let's start from the ground up. One, everybody in the group would have trusted me more. I
Mm-hmm.
would have been at ease, and I would have shown up like you wanted today, like without your
Mm.
game face on, with like actual presence, with
Mm.
actual, like, I'm here with these people, and the willingness to just admit that I made a mistake. I'm still a good I'm still I'm worthy, or whatever the thing was. And I look back at that now and I'm like, oh my God, that game face is so tiring. There's a kind of like going through it, but not really being present in a way that's tiring. So I really relate
Mm.
to what you're saying. That was just what came to my mind when you said game face. And how,
Yeah.
like, design, how I looked at your questions, but I thought, I'm going to just be here and respond, and I'm not going to come up with some pat answers to what you're asking.
Well, and it's funny, that's what the person I interviewed who's the six did. And then he kind of like, I'm gonna have the courage just to throw them out and just, have the
Mhm.
conversation. And so I
Yeah.
love how each of these talks, people have had a chance to see, reflect on both what creativity means to them, but also how it shows up in their type, and take risks and chances, and just, see what
Yeah.
happens in the process.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Absolutely.
so I'm
And
curious about creative blocks. And like, I feel like the answer to that question would be different if we're talking about sort of the ego type of creativity and sort of the more essence type creativity. And I'm not entirely sure where to take the question. And so I thought I'd just pass it over to you and see what came up.
yeah, yeah, creative blocks. Like, how do I think about them? Um, I do think creative blocks sometimes are just cop outs and
Hmm.
store narratives that we tell ourselves
Okay.
to affirm and to kind of deepen our lack of productivity or our lack of creation. I just think sometimes it's like, get over it. You know what? You're just,
Mm.
there is no such thing as writer's block. It just doesn't exist. Even if you just put your pencil down and put like, I have writer's block and I don't know what to write, and I'm, sitting under a tree, that idea that
Mm.
I believe that writer's block really is almost oftentimes a narrative of fear, a narrative of ego, a narrative of that kind of supports. And honestly, then I almost think the word fallow. I was talking to my daughter yesterday, and she's in very creative art school and a music band. But she was just having like 3 or 4 days of like, I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. And just she's 19 years old, and she was like, Papa, I think I'm just being fallow, and being and even having 3 or 4 fallow days where you're just like not that inspired, and you're not that. She's like, I actually see it as an active part of my creativity, not like this thing
Mm.
I got to deal with. Okay, suck it up, and you got to deal with these 4 days, or judge myself, why is this happening? So for her, it was amazing. I mean, she's like the little Buddha or whatever. She's like, I think this fallow time is actually just embrace it, and like so let's say writer's block is like, oh, I should be writing but I'm not, right? That's very different than, oh, I don't think I'm really up for writing today or tomorrow, but
Mm.
I'm going to go feed myself in other ways, knowing that me clenching down with writer's block is only going, it's going to delay my creativity. So in some ways, I really think or feel, have experience with, when I have writer's block, then write. Just write something, right? I'm not very creative with my songwriting. Start writing and write utter shit and let it let some moment 47 minutes later. Oh, that in some ways it's just the physical action. Like there was maybe one thought that I had with one of your questions about like how does it feel in my body. And I would say I can feel when I'm like this, trying in my head. And then when it starts to click, there's just bigger emotions, that kind of thing. And maybe what I'm saying with writer's block is I think we can write ourselves right out of it into inspiration. Here's in songwriting, this is a great quote for inspiration. When does, is hit songwriter, Nashville, like all these #1 hits, right? Someone interviewed him and said, when does inspiration come for your songs? And he said, it comes Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in a little cubicle in Nashville. That's when it comes. You know what I mean? Like, and I love that answer because it really is on Monday and Tuesday, nothing really happened. And maybe it was like, but on Wednesday after lunch, this thing started to happen. And you could call Monday and Tuesday writer's block, or you could calling it showing up and courting the muse and getting, doing work, doing actions,
Yeah.
So
I like that you called it a bit of a myth, because I think sometimes that's an important, we get so drawn into these narratives, and these narratives get reinforced by the ego or the inner critic or whatever it is, that we forget actually they are just narratives that it's a pattern that we can break and change and take a different perspective on and do things differently with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I do a lot of writing and songwriting workshops. And one of the things, just simply I do is I'm zooming ahead very fast. I don't just plop people down, but like you open up a notebook with a pencil and you start writing for 20 minutes. I mean, I am writing with a pencil on a piece of paper. I am in a room that has pink curtains. My grandmother's name was Annie. It doesn't matter. As long as you're moving your hand. By the third page, with some prompts and different things like that, this is where what I call you are sort of piercing the membrane between your unconscious and your conscious mind. And writer's block exists in your conscious mind. It's like a very thought. It's like, I'm not able to write. I don't know what to say. I'm stuck. And when you go like this and you move and move and move, you move your pencil and you let go and you go, blah, 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 and you're like this, what you're doing is you're poking down into your unconscious, subconscious mind. And that is when that is punctured, then things begin to come up from that are inspired, that have essence, truth to them. And sometimes you just have to kind of there, and then you go, oh, and I got this idea. But that maybe first half hour is just do something, move your pencil, move your paintbrush, walk in circles, whatever it is. So you have to
just
kind
do
of
something,
make yourself get there physically,
I both love this metaphor of piercing the membrane, but also find it a little bit gory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially on Halloween, as we
Oh
are
yeah, right.
talking.
Right. Yeah. But it is true. I think that, when you have these amazing ideas and they're really like, well, maybe flooded with, inspiration, it can be like a lot of information from your subconscious comes up to your conscious mind. And sometimes that can be overwhelming and a little bit scary even, Yeah.
So I'm curious. So coming back to you being a type 3 and your work as a musician and connecting with people, and you're creating work all the time, whether it's songs or performances, how have you found this shift to going deeper into understanding that 3 and potentially even moving towards the higher side of that type, whether it be essence or holy ideas? What shifts are you starting to notice in your creative output?
I'm noticing that I can do a lot more with a lot less effort. And so in some ways it's I can achieve more with a lot more flow and ease, and seemingly like, wow, I just made, and framed 35 mono prints, and like, these are beautiful, and people, you know what I mean, like, wow, I just did a lot. So in some ways, a really simple way to put it is I can achieve more with less work. That would be because I think the work comes from like, oh, I've got to achieve, I got to make these, I got to do this amazing thing, it's got to be really good, I got to try too hard. Try too hard is a really common
Mm,
phrase, I think, for a type
okay.
3. And so in some ways I can create more things from the place of offering gift, try it, allow for mistakes, allow for surprises that you didn't expect. um, yeah, editing is I like to edit, and I think I'm a good editor, but I think in the past my editor has run the show, and now I feel like the impulse can run the show and the editor comes in a little bit. But I have to be careful. I still have to be careful that I don't overthink or over edit my work
Mm,
too much, because I can take away some of the purity and the beauty of it.
interesting. I like
Yeah.
the achieving more by doing less and controlling or holding on a lot less tightly. And
Hmm.
how are you finding when you're creating from this place? How is that changing like how things land for your audience, or, the people you're connecting with or serving through your music or art?
Yeah, this might be repeating something about the trauma drive, but I feel that my audience, like I have fans who have known me for 18 years, let's say. They've known my music and followed me, for 18 years.
Mm.
And they loved what I did then and they love what I do now. But I do get a number of comments from people who would say, Joe, you're just you just seem so at ease, and you're calm, and you're connecting so much more deeply without all the fidgeting, and even like the word fidgeting, that's a good word, like, I'm doing this thing, I'm trying to do it, instead it's like, here. And I think that
Mm.
I get that comment from people that maybe they are able to receive my gift more clearly
Mm.
because I'm more relaxed, and it's coming from a calm offering instead of a fidgety, anxious attempt to make sure I connect.
I
And that's
love
been
that
great.
transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So I
that
definitely,
you have an audience that can reflect that to you, because so few of us do,
mm-hmm.
who have observed us or watched us for 18 years, and to
Yeah.
show that change.
Yeah. One of the things too that I was just thinking about was that in terms of vulnerability, is that one of the things that I think I'm much better at, and I've named now, is I could sing a song about something vulnerable that I had figured out. I knew what it was. Let's say I have a song called The Nazarene, that is a song that touches on my family history and my mom's mental illness. And, it's definitely a very beautiful song that is, some would say, wow, that's a vulnerable song. But for me, it was always a kind of performative vulnerability. Like, I was like, yeah, this is a song about 25 years ago. Here it is. People are like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. But so in some ways, I was in control of the situation and I'm performing this vulnerable song, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That's very different than being in a raw, vulnerable state in front of someone in the moment. Does that make? So one of
Mm-hmm.
them is like, yeah, I'm going to talk about this vulnerable thing, but it's performative. So I've always been perceived by my audience in some ways as, very open. Wow, he's so vulnerable, but not really. if I really said what I was scared to death about, what I was really melting down about, I wouldn't be able to do that in front of you. I would like to
Mm,
go behind closed doors and deal with that. And
mm,
I've gotten so much more comfortable being raw, being myself, being broken, being um, less put together in front of other people, because now I'm like, oh, I can be totally on and in my power and be with you. And I could be a little bit off and not doing well and kind of crumbling and maybe, insecure or whatever the word is. And you're still going to be there for me. You're still going to stay. And if you don't, then you don't get, then that's okay too. But
mm,
um, my point is, I think I'm more willing now to actually be vulnerable in front of people, and in appropriate good ways, but like rather than just performing it. Yeah,
And such an
yeah,
important but difficult transition. It takes you know inner work to get to that place, and to make that kind of
yeah,
shift. So that's
yeah,
great.
yeah. And this idea, I agree with you, and I've worked hard at it, and some of it just comes from when you're just tired of the way things are and you just don't want them like that anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
for me, it's just been like I want to be calm. I want to be relaxed. I want to trust myself, and kind of, if someone takes off and leaves because I'm not some version of it that they thought, screw them. It's
Mm,
awesome. Please, like, make more room in my life for those who want to be there.
mm.
So in some ways, a little bit of that too. It's like, go ahead. Thank you for cleaning house.
So
Yeah.
my last question is,
Okay.
I feel like I always get surprised, by how people answer this. Um, so what is your proudest creation, both personal or professional, like either or? And I mean, I can see we're already proud of, the transformation you've made around becoming more vulnerable, and
Yeah.
the way your creativity practice itself has changed. But I'm still curious about how
Yeah.
you'd answer that question.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Just as you asked me that question, my phone was sitting next to me and it started ringing, and it's my daughter calling, and my daughter Josie, and she's 19 years old. And it seems almost like almost a cliche answer for some dad to say, "Oh, my daughter is my favorite, my proudest creation." But as she was calling right then, tomorrow is the release day of her first recording that she's putting out to the world, and
Wow.
her band is called Euchre, like the card game Euchre,
Mhm.
and it's not so much like my daughter is my proudest creation, but I would say that my relationship with her, and in a way, I've always been very conscious and interested in breaking the cycle of generational trauma.
Mm,
And I don't know why, but I definitely feel that when she was born 19 years ago, and the way that she was raised, the way I was with her, it really was something that I got to practice almost and it was very healing to me to practice giving her space, autonomy, encouragement, allow her soul
mm,
impulse to create. And no matter what that meant, I'm not, it doesn't have to look this way or that way. Parents control children so much. And I feel that I gave her the ability to have a belief system, to to question herself and to understand herself as a type 1, and all these things, but to do it in her own way. And I think
mm,
that we're still very close, and there's been very little power struggle because of that. So I think I'm really proud of the times and places in my life, like my daughter, where I'm able to collaborate with others to let them be their true essence, and I
mm,
can be my true essence without controlling them or controlling myself. And I think I that's the answer that I would give for this
Mm,
moment, and partially because the phone rang and it was her, and um, I'm really proud of the word becoming. I think I said that even early on in this conversation is I gave her the space and environment to become who
mm,
she wanted to become and needed to become. And I think she is doing that. And I'm proud of that. And I'm going to keep doing that for myself too. Yep.
mm. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for not just sharing that. And, I think that's one thing that's come out through the series is how much, relationships are a creation, and
Yeah.
how we parent is a creation, is a creative act. And what we intentionally bring into that or leave out does, shape a lot of things.
Yeah.
So thank you. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And thank you so much for your time and this beautiful conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Samantha. I really excited to watch and take in all of the other episodes, and was very excited and glad to be invited to be part of this one. So thanks.
Thank you.